Prudent Scholars in association with Goa Headmasters Association.
Welcome back, students, to the second part of the chapter Agriculture, and we will finish the lesson in this part of the lesson. Agriculture, as we had studied earlier, we dealt with various food crops, right? There were food crops which are not grains, and we will continue now with again food crops which are not grains but utilized very much in our country. It's also exported. Now you will see that under this food crop we have rubber. You will see in the pictures the rubber trees are grown one behind or one besides the other. You will see in the next picture how the bark is sliced or given a groove. Okay. You will see that the sap or the rubber which is the sap of the tree, it flows in containers which is tied to the tree. This sap is then dried and made into sheets, as you can see in the next picture, and it is dried, okay, like how we dry clothes. So you get rubber sheets. Now rubber is a very interesting crop which is generally grown in the equatorial regions but also grows in the subtropical and the tropical regions. So it has also a large area where it can grow. It requires moist and humid climate with rain of more than 200 centimeters. So it requires very heavy rainfall. Temperatures therefore won't be very high, so it requires 25 degrees Celsius of temperature. It is basically used as an industrial raw material. It is grown in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the Garo hills of Meghalaya, because these places have a lot of rain and it is moist. You will see that it is basically used, okay, in the tire and footwear industry besides other related industry. So tires, footwear make most use of the rubber which is grown and harvested here. And you will see that there is a small pie chart in your textbook showing the other uses of rubber. So please refer to the pie chart in your text. Next we come to the other crops which are fiber crops. So food crops are over, this is fibers. The first fiber that we need to study is silk. You will see the silkworm there. The silkworm is eating the mulberry leaves and they have made the cocoon. So it is derived, silk as a fiber is basically derived, and you already know about it. It is derived from the cocoons of the silkworms which feed on mulberry leaves. So what is sericulture? It is the rearing of silkworms for production of silk fiber is defined as sericulture. The next fiber that we study is cotton. Cotton is an important raw material for the textile industry. And India has been growing cotton since time immemorial. And we see that this cotton we have learned how to utilize it to the best of our ability, and India ranks a great amount or stands a great amount in the manufacture and the production of cotton materials. You will see that for the growth of cotton we need black cotton soil, basically which are found in the Deccan regions. It's a kharif crop and requires high temperature, light rains and irrigation. Like any other plant, it will require rains, irrigation, but it also requires 210 frost-free days with bright sunshine for growing. So it will require rain in the initial period, but towards the end when it needs to be harvested, it requires bright sunshine. It is grown in Maharashtra and Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. Kindly excuse me for writing short forms here, but I couldn't fit it into the slide. So, Maharashtra and Gujarat are leading states in the country where cotton is grown. Besides that, you have it in MP, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. Jute. Jute is referred to as the golden fiber of India, and it grows well in well-drained fertile soils of the floodplains where the soils are renewed every year. So, the growth of jute will require fresh soil which comes down from the Brahmaputra river, and you will see it is basically grown in those regions. So, the alluvium needs to be replenished. So, it requires fine alluvial soil in order to give a good harvest of jute. It requires high temperatures for growing. You will see that it is grown in states of West Bengal, Bihar, Assam, Orissa and Meghalaya. This is a very important occupation for the people of that region. What is the use of jute? You will see that it is used in making gunny bags, mats, ropes, yarn, carpets and other artifacts. So, when you go for these exhibitions and all, you will find a lot of artifacts which are made of jute in order to support those farmers and that industry. Its high cost makes it lose its market to the synthetic fibers, especially nylon. So, because jute is a time consuming and requires a lot of input, even labor, they require a lot of labor, you will see that it makes it a little expensive, right. So, it faces a competition with the synthetic market where you have plastic, nylon and other materials with which it really needs to compete, right, especially in packaging. We see many of our shops and all, we have a lot of jute material which is used for wrapping or packaging industry that they say. We use a lot of jute and we need to support this occupation and these farmers who grow jute. That is the end of the crops that we were studying. We began with rice and wheat, then we went to millets, that is jawar, bajra and ragi. We went to maize, pulses, then we saw sugarcane, oil seeds, tea, coffee, right. Then we went to rubber, then we saw the jute, silk, cotton industry a little bit, okay, what are the requirements. So, that comes to the end of the crops that we need to study in this chapter. Now, the remaining part of the lesson is a little bit of improvement that India has made and needs to make if agriculture needs to improvise within the country. The government is making enough efforts, but we can't remain static. We need to be dynamic and we need to have various reforms and various other things in order to benefit the production of agricultural crops in the country. Agriculture has been practiced in India for thousands of years. Sustained uses of land without compatible techno-institutional changes have hindered the pace of agricultural development. So, there are certain features in agriculture which need to be changed, be it on the field, that is in the agricultural regions, or technical or institutional reforms, the offices, what are the various laws, what are the various provisions that we need to meet in order to improve agriculture. If it has to go down to the farmers, what are the benefits and improvement that we need to make in our agriculture in order to benefit them and in order to improve the production in the country. Why has India not improved in technical and institutional reforms in agriculture? What is it that hampered? In spite of development of sources of irrigation, most of the farmers in large parts of the country still depend on the monsoon and the natural fertility in order to carry out agriculture. So, you see certain things, certain provisions have not reached the farmer. So, we need to work upon that. Agriculture needs serious technical and institutional reforms. Now, what are those reforms that need to be carried out? They are collectivization, consolidation of holdings, cooperation and the abolishing of the zamindari system. in order that agriculture improved, and this has been carried out since independence. Now what are the, I have given you the meanings of all those 4 terms. Now what is collectivization? The process by which farmland is aggregated. So the small land holdings make it uneconomical. Therefore, if we can bring the land together, get the farmers to work as a collective group, we can do something with the land. So collectivization, where this farmland is brought together. What is consolidation of land holdings? You will see converting many small and fragmented holdings into one big farm, almost the same thing, right. So everybody's land holdings will put it together and divide the produce maybe on the area that the farmer has. So it's a process in which farmers' fragmented land holdings are pooled together and then re-allotted in a way that, depending on its size and the fertility of the land, the farmer gets his compensation once the crop is sold. What is cooperation? It was introduced in India for the supply of credit to agriculture. So now where the money needed to be pumped into agriculture, they had this cooperative method where the farmers would be members of this cooperative society and benefit by taking subsidies and whatever other requirements that was provided for the farmers through the cooperative method. The basic objective of this cooperative movement in India was to eradicate the local money lender who usually exploits the farmers by charging them unreasonable rates of interest. So once the government stepped in over here to make the cooperative movement more active, we see that farmers stood to benefit. But this needs to reach out, seep into the poorest of the poor farmer. The zamindari system. Now who were the zamindars? These were people who held enormous tracts of land and control over the peasants, over the farmers, from whom they reserved the right to collect tax. So they were basically tax collectors, okay, on behalf of the courts or the military or the king. So zamindars were people who not only had land holdings, but also they collected tax from the farmers towards the military or the government. So these things needed to be abolished in order to improve agriculture in the country. So the various technical and institutional reforms can be summed up like this. First, the land reforms that would be needed to carry out would be collectivization, consolidation of land holdings, cooperation, and the abolishing of the zamindari system. Second, certain agricultural reforms, the Green Revolution and the White Revolution. Now the Green Revolution is the improvisation in the crops. Like we have already begun Green Revolution with rice and wheat. What about the other crops? They are also consumed and consumed in a large amount among the people of the country. So we need to have reforms there, the revolution there. White Revolution is, as you know, the production of milk, the improvisation in the production or the increased production of milk within the country. So Green Revolution and White Revolution would be reforms brought about, were reforms brought about. Land development programs like provision for crop insurance against drought, flood and cyclone. See, when a farmer grows crops, right, if there is a drought, we have seen what has happened to farmers of the surrounding states. They sometimes had to take the extreme step of even committing suicide. That is not fair for a person who works hard in his field in order to give us food on our plates, right. So we need to think about this. So therefore the government was prudent enough to see that insurance against drought, flood, we have been having a lot of rain the last 2-3 years, so flood also becomes a situation, cyclones, especially the eastern belt, the east coast gets a lot of cyclones, so that also needed to be taken care of. Besides that, establishment of Grameen banks. These were banks specially for the farmers in order to obtain loans for subsidy, right, to help them improve their effort in the field in order to get a better produce for themselves and maybe surplus for the country. Cooperative societies, we have just spoken about cooperatives, whereby the farmer does not take the responsibility of selling and processing his produce. He is interested only in production of his crops, then the rest is then sold to the cooperative societies, who further have tie-ups with other industries for processing of this raw material, and banks for providing loans. We have got different banks specially for providing subsidy and loans to farmers for agriculture only. So, where they could get loans to buy, maybe to put a tube well, to buy a tractor, to buy fertilizers, to put a pipeline into their field. So, for this the subsidized rates of loans are given to the farmers. Issuing of the Kisan credit card. So, this is another card which is given only exclusively for the farmers to get whatever benefits are entailed in the card. Personal accident insurance scheme. There are a lot of farmers who meet with accidents. Sometimes they lose their lives, or they are in a vegetative state. So, this scheme will help take care of, at least for a certain period of time, the farmer and his family. Special weather bulletins and agricultural program for farmers on radio and TV. So, we have got special weather bulletins informing the farmer about the rain, wind speed, right. So, the farmer needs to know this, okay, especially when they are awaiting rains, if there is a cyclone or if there is flood coming about. So, all these are very important for the farmers. Besides that, agricultural programs on radio and TV, where maybe certain methods of farming, certain varieties of new hybrid variety of crops, right, certain techniques, certain maybe courses which are conducted for farmers into maybe hybridization or planting and whatever else, whatever new fertilizers, what are the advantages, disadvantages, so many things which are told to the farmers on radio and TV. So, this is also another very good initiative taken by the government. The government also announces something known as the minimum support price. We studied about this in standard 9, and the remunerative and procurement prices to check exploitation. So, when these schemes are given to the government, to the farmer by the government, the farmer is rest assured that his effort will not go in vain. So, he works more sincerely and he works harder in order to get the benefit. The government provides HYV seeds and fertilizers. So, HYV seeds which are made in the factories are then provided to the farmer at a subsidized rate. So, the government also reaches out to the farmer with these things, what is most required for them. The government provides technical assistance and training for farmers. So, they have various courses maybe at their various levels, the block development level or whichever level, and you see that training is given on new schemes, whatever is new, whatever the government information that the government needs to disseminate to the farmers is carried out during this exercise. And the farmers also feel a little encouraged that okay, there is somebody who is interested in our welfare and we are doing, and it's worth attending these. What is the contribution of agriculture to the GDP? With all these schemes, with all these facilities provided, with so much of input by the government, with so much of effort from the farmers, has agriculture managed to increase the GDP of the country? Agriculture has been the backbone of Indian economy through its share of the GDP. It has registered a declining trend from 1951 onwards. However, in 2010-11, about 52% of the total workforce was employed in the farm sector. Now, we notice that there has been a gradual decline. With the amount of effort put in, there should have been a rise in the GDP. Okay, the agricultural contribution towards the GDP should have risen, but it hasn't. Why? Declining the share of agriculture in the GDP is a matter of serious concern because any decline and stagnation in agriculture will lead to a decline in the other spheres of the economy, because we said agriculture not only provides food but also a raw material for industry. So, if the raw material falls short, how will the industry progress? And if the industry does not progress, there is no economy. So, therefore, it is like a vicious cycle. So, we need to look into the matter very seriously as to why agricultural contribution towards the GDP has declined. So, keeping this in mind, realizing that we better step in, the government took some more initiatives. They established something known as the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, or ICARS. We have one in Goa at Ella. We also have, they have also started agricultural universities to educate students who would like to go into agriculture and research. We have got veterinary services in order to have improved livestock, animal breeding centers to provide better animals which will give you either better milk or better meat, horticultural development to improve the fruits, vegetables, flowers in the country, research and development. There is also a lot of research development going on. Then meteorology and weather forecast. So, this is something which one might have thought is not related to agriculture, but meteorology and weather forecast is important as well. So, all these were given priority to improve Indian agriculture. So, before things went out of hand, these things were started side by side. However, what is still happening? What is the grassroots problem of the farmer? You see, in spite of all this, growth in agriculture started decelerating because the Indian farmer faced a big challenge from international competition, and our government is going ahead with the reduction in public investment in the agricultural sector. Now, what the government is doing is not encouraging enough of investment from the public, from the people in the agricultural sector. Therefore, if there is a shortfall of finance here, then everybody, all the farmers do not benefit. If this increases, then this money can be distributed to the farmers for improving their standard of agriculture. So, this is what the Indian farmer feels, that they are facing a stiff competition. So, we will go to buy some produce which is manufactured in other countries of the world, but buy our own produce because we do not have. And why we do not have? Because we do not have the money, we do not have the funds to pump into improving this field of agriculture. Subsidy on fertilizers has decreased, leading to increase in the cost of production. If a bag of fertilizer say cost 1000 rupees and the government would give a subsidy say of 200 rupees on it, therefore, the farmer would pay just 800 rupees on that. But now, when the subsidy has decreased, when the farmer, if the government says I will give you only 50 rupees subsidy on it, the farmer has to put in 950 rupees, which sometimes is difficult for a small time farmer. So, this is exactly what has happened. The subsidy on fertilizer has decreased, therefore, it has increased the cost of production for the farmer. Reduction in import duties on agricultural products have proved harmful to agriculture in the country. Now, when we import, right, there is a certain fee or known as a duty which is paid in order to import this, maybe a gadget or whatever material that is required for machinery required for agriculture. Now, when there is a reduction on the import duties, you will see again just like this it falls expensive for the farmers. The farmer has to pay more from his pocket in order to procure this. So, this again has been a setback in Indian agriculture. So, therefore, the farmers are withdrawing their investment, whether it is investment of their money or time from agriculture, and therefore, you will see there is a downfall in employment in agriculture. So, when these things I have still to improvise, when there is negotiation needs to be carried out, we after doing so much we still need to improve. Therefore, these reforms are ongoing, it just does not get over. So, this is what is happening. It just hits the people, the farmer in the face, all these things that we have just discussed. So, remember that our Indian farmers do face challenge, first of all from international competition. Secondly, you will see that the government has reduced public investment in agriculture. Subsidies have been reduced not only for fertilizers, but also the import duties. You will see therefore, farmers are not interested in continuing or investing their time or money in agriculture. Therefore, there is a fall in the contribution of agriculture towards the GDP in spite of pumping in so much of funds. How can each district and block, so now we are talking on the big aspect, come to a small district, a small block, a small area of a place. How can this be made self-sufficient? How can farmers in a particular village or maybe in a taluka or maybe in district of North Goa, how can they be made more self-sufficient in food grain production? Okay? So, if all the farmers say of North Goa or South Goa have to come together, you will see that they will need from the government proper agricultural infrastructure, credits, that is subsidies. Okay, also use the encourage of latest techniques. What is the latest technique? Don't make it primitive, move ahead. Instead of concentrating only on rice and wheat, we need to grow crops which have got better potential in that area, so that we increase the produce of that particular crop which is endemic to that place. Creation of necessary infrastructure such as irrigation, availability of electricity, basic farmers, but it may also encourage other people, private investments in agriculture. So, that is how we could improve agriculture in the small districts and blocks. So, if these SOPs are given to the farmers, it is not only the farmers, but people who are outside the farming community also would like to invest and improve or help agriculture. Now, we have grown so many crops. We have seen that commercial plantation also or commercial agriculture also requires market. And this market, when you have the market, it should go to all the people of the country. And that is where this the system of food security comes in. Is everybody in the country food secure, or are they food insecure? When we see pictures, when we see reports on the TV, we see that it doesn't look like everybody gets food, right? So, what is this food security? In order to ensure the availability of food to all sections of society, the government has designed something which is known as the National Food Security System. In order to make food available to everybody in the country, the government has initiated something known as the National Food Security System. What are the two folds of this system? One is said to be the buffer stock, and second is public distribution system. Now, buffer stock, as we have studied in standard 9, is stocking up of the food grains, and stocking up is not enough. Now, that has to go to the people. Therefore, we have the other component, which is the public distribution system. The public distribution system is a program which provides food grains and other essential commodities at a subsidized rate both to rural and urban India. So, at subsidized rate, the basic food necessities are given. So, it is not only grains, it also has sugar and oil and certain other items. Now, what is the objective of this? The main objective of this was to give food at an affordable rate to common man. Food at an affordable rate to common man. This policy also focuses on the growth of agricultural production. Okay, so if we have so many people, so much of rice is required, therefore we need to improve our produce. So, we have to produce much more. So, therefore, we also have something known as fixing of the support price for the farmer, so he can produce more. Okay, that is the minimum support price. Also, and besides that, for the procurement of wheat and rice, we are consistently talking about wheat and rice because that is the staple food of our people, right? And therefore, we need to maintain a stock. So, basically wheat and rice, MSP on that and the encouraging the farmers to grow this so that everybody can get these two basic cereals. Therefore, we have another government organization known as the Food Corporation of India, which now will procure the food grains and ensure its distribution by the public distribution method. So, we see that the Food Corporation of India, another body, has its duty of procuring food grains from all these farmers, from the commercial methods of production, and its responsibility is to give it to make sure that the PDS, the public distribution system, functions well by distributing food to everybody. How are food grains procured, and are there any advantages or disadvantages of this system? We will see that the Food Corporation of India procures food from the farmers at the minimum support price, which is announced previously before the growing season begins. Second, the government used to provide subsidies on agricultural inputs like fertilizers, water, etc. But now they have reached sustainable levels and so have led to large scale inefficiencies in the use of these inputs. So now everybody, this whole system is become saturated and ineffective, and therefore the inputs are very scarce. There has been excessive use of water. We've made use of irrigation, or we've made use of irrigational facilities, but for what now? We are using excessive water, excessive fertilizers, which has led to waterlogging, salinity and alkalinity of the soil, and depletion of the micronutrients of the soil. See, with full faith and with good intention, these programs were started. Irrigation, supply of fertilizers, right, even having the green revolution, but over a period of time we have realized that these have had its ill effects of waterlogging, because continuously if you are going to irrigate the land and there is no time and space for the land to drain the water, therefore it will lead to waterlogging. We are putting fertilizers into the soil, acids and bases give salt and water in the neutralization process in science. So, whether the soil, if the soil is acidic, you will use a basic fertilizer. If the soil is basic, you will use an acidic fertilizer. So, this causes waterlogging, because the salt and water created, that is what creates the waterlogging. Then you will see that for the micronutrients, the natural micronutrients within the soil cannot grow. They are dead because you have put enough of and too much of fertilizer. The high MSP subsidies on the input and the committed purchases by the Food Corporation of India have distorted the cropping pattern. So, now what is happening, the farmer is growing either water intensive crop, or they are growing crops only which will give you the MSP, thereby causing a distortion in the cropping pattern. Wheat and paddy crops grown in Punjab and Haryana for their MSPs have created imbalance, a serious imbalance and intercrop parities. So, the farmers are growing only because they are getting MSP on that. How are the consumers divided? The consumers are divided into two. One is the BPL and the APL, below poverty line and the above poverty line, and even in this there has been disparity. The categorization is not perfect because there are a number of deserving poor who are excluded, and sometimes the APL for whatever reason have come down to the BPL. So, therefore, you will see that not everybody gets this food which was meant, the food security system was meant to give food to everybody in the country. So, you will see that some of the APL slip back to the BPL because of the failure of one crop, and it is difficult to accommodate such shifts. So, this also needs to be seen into. So, how can we become self-sufficient? What else can we do? We have done enough and more and come all along since independence. What else can we do? Self-sufficiency can be attained if the government provides proper agricultural infrastructure, linkages, and the use of latest techniques. See, this was the same thing we were talking about, each block can be made self-sufficient. Each district can be made self-sufficient if we have these things. So, instead of going on to the large picture, let us go to each district and block and see how we could improvise there. So, here the government could provide proper infrastructure, proper linkages and proper techniques. Second, instead of concentrating only on rice and wheat, we could grow crop with better growth potential in a particular area. Like if a place is endemic to a certain crop, fruit, vegetable, we should encourage the growth of that crop in that place. Creation of necessary infrastructure such as irrigation, availability of electricity and private investment in agriculture. So, if there is no investment, there is no scope to improve irrigation, no scope to improve electricity. The focus on increasing food production should be on a sustainable basis, and free trade in grains will create massive employment and reduce poverty in the rural areas. So, we need to increase our food grain production on a sustainable basis. So, therefore, alkalinity, salinity and the waterlogging elements should be tried to be reduced in order that our soil continues to live and give its produce. What is the future of India's food security? A shift from the cultivation of food crops to cultivation of fruit, vegetable, oil seeds and industrial crops. This has led to a reduction in the net sown area under cereals and pulses. So, the amount of the land that you or the amount of produce cereals and pulses that you would get from one field, one stretch of land has been reduced because of the growth of those are the like fruit, vegetables and oil seeds. There has also been a competition between the non-agricultural and the agricultural uses of land where the which has reduced the net sown area. We see a lot of agricultural land which is sold for non-agricultural purposes. So, therefore, there has been a tussle there. Productivity of land or the soil has reduced, has declined because of fertility, because the fertilizers, pesticides and the insecticides which have been utilized in production of crops. Scarcity of water has led to reduction of area under irrigation, whereas inefficient water management has led to waterlogging and salinity of the soil. So, there is a lot more that we need to improve upon in order to get the best of our soil and all the resources that we have in the country. Now, why has food grain production remained stagnant or fallen in the 5 consecutive years? There is a table given in your textbook. You will notice that the food grains have either remained the same production or have reduced. Why? First of all, land degradation. So, therefore, the fertility, alkalinity and the salinity of the land. Reduced water shortage in the aquifers due to unsustainable pumping. Now, the water goes into aquifers, the natural aquifers of the land. Now, when you have got your tube wells, you will see that the farmers pump extra water out because they are growing water intensive crop. Therefore, the water table has gone down and the poor farmer or the common farmer does not have water for irrigation. So, therefore, there is reduction of water storage in these aquifers. Inadequate storage and marketing facilities. Okay, now we have grown the crop, but we still do not have storage and marketing facilities in place. Like the cooperatives, if we had to have storage facilities, our crops, the shelf life of the crop would have increased, which we do not have. Therefore, there is a tremendous loss of crops in the country. Farmers have to pay high price for HYV seeds, fertilizer, etc., but they lack the bargaining power when they go to sell their crops. They pay a good amount because there is no subsidy. Okay. Certain places you will see that HYV seeds are given, the fertilizers do not have subsidies, but you will see that when it comes to selling the crops, the poor farmer, the lone farmer cannot have his say in the matter. Here again, cooperatives would need to step in. Higher the supply, lower is the demand. So, if you have too much of something in the excess of production, you have to reduce the price because there is a lot available in the market and nobody wants to buy. But if there is very short supply, you will see that the demand is more. So, therefore, we need not only to grow only certain crops to a great extent, but diversify to growing of other crops. So, therefore, when you have higher supply, lower demand, therefore, there is distress sale. So, sometimes crops are sold at below the profit level. So, that too cannot be. Therefore, they say that there can be no food security without the security of small farmers, because this is exactly what the small farmers need and they should be taken care of. What is the impact of globalization on agriculture? All the countries are producing, but globalization, what has this led to agriculture in India? You will see from the 19th century when the traders came, and then we had the British who came and they advocated the Champaran movement. You will see that under this globalization, the Indian farmers have been exposed to new challenges, and besides India being the hub of producer of rice, cotton, rubber, tea, coffee, jute and spices, we still need to compete with the other countries, because you will see that the other countries have a lot of subsidy given to their agriculture or to their farmers. So, they have a lot of subsidized agriculture and our farmers still have to compete and struggle. That is why you see, in spite of being such a big country, having so much of produce, our farmers still need to struggle. So, what do we do then to make agriculture successful and profitable? We need to improve the condition of the small and marginal farmers. Green revolution in the other crops. We should see that land degradation is brought under control. We need to have genetic engineering by which we will be able to have crops which are healthy, sustainable both for human beings as well as for the soil and the farmer. Organic farming has been much in vogue of late because it is made by without the use of factory made chemicals or fertilizers and pesticides. Therefore, it does not have a negative impact on the soil. Indian farmers will have a bleak future if they continue growing only food grains, because their land holdings are growing smaller and smaller as the population rises. Therefore, we need to have a diversified cropping pattern, right, from not keeping cereal crops, but also shifting to high value crops that will increase the income, reduce environmental degradation. India's diverse climate can be harnessed to grow a variety of value crops. And that is the end of the lesson. The second part is a little heavy, but it will make sense as you read your lesson and you understand the factors that have been put to you. Wishing you the very best in this lesson and in your class 10 this year. Thank you.